Tell me something. What if the real monster in Welcome to Derry isn't Pennywise? Because episode 2 just exposed something so disturbing, so mind-rotting, that I genuinely had to pause the screen and just breathe. See, we've all grown up believing Pennywise is this ancient cosmic creature that came to Derry to feed, to play, to terrorize children and consume fear. But what if I told you someone is trying to turn Pennywise into a weapon? And not just any weapon, a weapon that doesn't destroy cities, it destroys the human mind. Operation Precept, the project we were never supposed to know about, just got revealed. And it changes everything. Because this time, Pennywise isn't hunting the town. The US military is hunting Pennywise. They want to control fear, to manufacture terror, to unleash panic like a bomb. And the craziest part? They already found the one man who Pennywise can't manipulate. A man who physically cannot feel fear. Major Leroy, the only human who could walk face to face with Pennywise and feel nothing. Why? Because the part of his brain that senses fear is dead. But here's the part that actually scared me. If humans are now trying to weaponize fear itself, then who is the monster? Pennywise, or us? And episode 2 doesn't just hint this, it proves it. Today, we're digging into everything hidden inside the military base. The truth about Leroy's condition, Dick Halloran's secret role, the excavation of the Bradley gang, and the horrifying reason Derry obeys the clown. But listen, before we go further, this channel runs on your support. So if you want more breakdowns like this, just hit subscribe once. One click for you, but it changes everything for us. Alright, let's go inside Operation Precept. So, let's step into Derry. Not the Derry we think we know. Not the town of balloons and sewers and children riding bikes trying to outrun nightmares. This is Derry under surveillance. Derry under military watch. Derry as a test site. A town not simply haunted by a monster, but studied for it. Because what episode 2 shows us is not just fear. It's fear being measured, fear being recorded, fear being weaponized, and the center of it all is a man who cannot feel fear. Major Leroy Hanlon. Now let's talk about him for a second, because he is the turning point of this entire story. Most soldiers come back from war with trauma. We know this. Flashbacks, panic, nightmares. PTSD becomes like a shadow that wakes up earlier than you do and goes to sleep later than your thoughts will allow. War leaves marks on the body, on the heart, on the mind. But Leroy? War took something else from him. His amygdala, the part of the brain that warns you when something is wrong, was destroyed. Meaning, he doesn't panic, he doesn't flinch, he doesn't freeze, he doesn't feel fear. And that is exactly why the military wants him. Because fear is the currency of Pennywise. To Pennywise, fear is oxygen, terror is food, dread is life. So what happens when the monster meets someone who cannot feed him? Pause here and think about that. Imagine Pennywise getting in your face, the distorted smile, the trembling voice, the impossible shape of something that shouldn't be alive. And your brain? Just doesn't react. Not courage, not bravery, just nothing. To Pennywise, that's starvation. And that's why Leroy wasn't just recruited. He was hunted. And the military didn't test him with paperwork or psychological readings. They attacked him in the dark. Let's go back to that scene, because it's critical. Leroy is walking, minding his own business, and suddenly masked men jump him. No warning, no signal, just violence. Any normal person would careen into panic, because sudden human aggression is the most primal trigger of fear. But Leroy? He analyzes. He looks at the attacker's movements, not their intent. He studies the gun, not the face. He notices the weapon is a Makarov PM, a Russian pistol, and that's where he realizes something is wrong. Because someone infiltrating the US military with a Soviet weapon during the height of Cold War tension is not normal. Yet later, he finds out the man who confessed to attacking him, the officer named Masters, doesn't even know how to load the gun. He had no skill, no training, no familiarity. He was chosen to take the blame. A fall guy. So Leroy does something the military did not expect. He refuses the lie. He confronts General Shaw and exposes the truth. And in that moment, the general's expression changes. Not angry, not annoyed, but interested. Because now he knows the rumors are real. Leroy is not just fearless. He is sharp, observant, hard to manipulate, hard to deceive, someone who sees through things. And that's when Shaw finally reveals the truth. He leads Leroy deep into the base, past locked corridors, past men who do not speak, past doors that stay shut no matter who knocks, into the heart of the operation, a project called Operation Precept. And here's where things get dark. We expect secret projects to be about building something, a machine, a weapon, a device, a new kind of bomb. But Shaw says, this weapon wasn't built. It was found here, in Derry. Because Pennywise did not just appear here. Pennywise arrived, long before the town was built, long before anyone lived here, long before maps even acknowledged this place. A meteor, a cosmic impact, something older than humanity and more intelligent than instinct. And whatever form this entity took when it crashed, pieces of it remained. Fragments, artifacts, remnants of the vessel that carried something not meant for this world. The military calls them beacons. Why? Because, like signals, they lead to the source. And this is where Dick Halloran enters the story. Yes, the same Halloran from The Shining, the man with the shine, the psychic sense, the ability to see what others refuse to believe. In Welcome to Derry, he is younger, but the gift is the same. He sees things before others do. But here's the twist. The military doesn't see him as a human with abilities. They see him as a tool to track Pennywise. They use his visions to know where to dig, where to search, where the beacons might be buried. But Dick plays along very carefully. Because every time someone with the shine gets close to Pennywise, Pennywise sees them too. And in episode 2, Dick does something very subtle that most viewers missed. When he looks at Leroy, he recognizes him, like he knows something about Leroy's future, like he knows Leroy's role in all of this is bigger than the military realizes. And he gives him that small wink, not friendly, not mocking, but meaningful. A message that silently says, I know what you are, and I know what's coming. And now we reach the excavation site. The digging, the dust, the tension, the soldiers moving like they think they're making history. But instead of finding alien metal or supernatural artifacts, they find something human. A jeep, filled with skeletons. The Bradley Gang, a group of robbers wiped out by the citizens of Derry in 1929. Not killed by police, not arrested legally, not brought to trial. The town killed them, as one, together, in a frenzy, like something inside the town told them to, like the town itself was alive. And this is the moment the truth starts to slip through the cracks. Derry is not just haunted. Derry is obedient. Derry does not fear Pennywise. Derry serves Pennywise. And now the military believes they can too. But let me ask you this, and I want you to really think on it. What happens to the person who tries to own fear? What happens when you try to cage something that has lived longer than your species? What happens when you treat terror like a tool? Because based on everything we've seen so far, Pennywise isn't the one who should be afraid. They should. And this is only the beginning. Now that we understand what Leroy is, we need to understand what the military wants him to become. Because Operation Precept isn't a research project. It's not discovery. It's domestication. They are trying to train Pennywise. Let that sink in for a moment. The US government, in the middle of one of the most unstable political eras in history, looked at a shape-shifting, immortal cosmic predator and said, yes. Let's try to use that, not destroy it, not contain it, not wipe it from the face of Earth. Use it. Because fear is a weapon, not a metaphor, not poetry, not psychological manipulation, actual weapon. Terror can collapse a city without a single bullet being fired. Panic kills faster than bombs. The mind is the weakest part of the human machine. And Pennywise? Pennywise knows how to crush it. And that's where Leroy comes in. If Pennywise cannot scare him, then Leroy becomes the handler. The leash, the control mechanism. That's why they needed to test him. Not just whether he lacked fear, but whether he could resist influence. Because Pennywise doesn't just use fear. He uses memory. He uses regret, shame, guilt, trauma. He reaches into the parts of the mind you try to bury and forces you to stare at them. But Leroy? There's nothing in there for Pennywise to grab. No vulnerability, no hesitation, no trembling instinct telling him to run. He is the human equivalent of a closed door, and the military thinks that makes him strong. But here's the terrifying truth. Fearlessness is not power. Fearlessness is emptiness. Fear is what stops you from stepping off cliffs. Fear is what keeps your hand from fire. Fear is what tells you when something is wrong. Without fear,